Please welcome Jon Meacham. Good morning.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Now, you've done something for the first time in your very long career as a historian and a presidential biographer. You've actually endorsed a presidential candidate. I'm told it was Joe Biden, to be exact, and you spoke on his behalf at the DNC. What made you change your mind now and do something so really unprecedented for you?
Well, I think this is an existential election. I think that decency and democracy and the role of fact as opposed to automatic, reflexive, ideological passion are all on the ballot. And I believe that it's given to those of us to whom much is given, much is expected. I've been very fortunate in my life. Look, I'm a white male Southern Episcopalian. You know, things tend to work out for me in this country. And I think that America is at its best when people reach out and don't simply clench their fists and keep their hands in their pockets. We're better when we hope and not when we fear. We're better when we build and not when we try to tear down. And I think it's a pretty clear choice. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I voted for presidents of both parties. Look, I'm George Bush's biographer. But I think that Vice President Biden is clearly the best choice for this moment. And I felt that if my conscience and my heart and my brain were all in alignment on this, I had an obligation to speak out.
The election is only a week away. If Vice President Biden wins, what's the immediate impact on the country? And also, if President Trump were to be reelected?
Great question. If Vice President Biden wins, a lot depends on also defining what that win is. Does the president accept those results? And as important, do the president's most fervent supporters accept those results? If there's a clear and clean victory and people are, everybody's signed on to the constitutional experiment as we're supposed to be, I think the first thing that's going to happen, and the first thing I hope that happens, is there's a rational response to the pandemic, because until we get the pandemic under control, the economic and structural shifts that we're all dealing with are not going to be fixed. The other thing I hope that happens in the fullness of time is that politics will become, again, part of our lives and not the consuming, prevailing element. You know, politics the last 5 years has had this immense control over our mind share. And I think that Vice President Biden has the capacity to return us to a place where we don't have to wake up worrying about what the president might have said overnight.
Last night, Amy Coney Barrett was sworn into the Supreme Court at a ceremony at the White House. So she is now Justice Barrett. What are your thoughts on how this process was conducted, and what will the political effects be?
I understand why people are angry about the political hypocrisy of the Republican majority's views on filling the Supreme Court seats. But ultimately, the Constitution itself was adhered to. And so one can be unhappy about the way this unfolded, but it's a totally legitimate, constitutionally legitimate confirmation. And as President Trump has said, and I would urge everybody to remember, elections have consequences. And if you're looking for consistency of principle and people to follow what they said in one era into the next, politicians are probably not the place where you should look for that, right? I mean, politics is an imperfect, very human undertaking. And so it's going to be characterized by the vices that all of us have in our own lives. There's going to be selfishness. There's going to be hypocrisy. There's going to be self-justification. I think the real question beyond Justice Barrett is, particularly for religious folks in the country, particularly white evangelicals, the Supreme Court has come to occupy this powerful position in the center of the conservative mind. It really started not with the Roe decision in '73, but it started in 1962 with the school prayer decision that said you couldn't have organized school prayer. And in many ways, it started in 1954 with the Brown decision, when people began to realize very clearly that the Supreme Court mattered enormously. My own hope for us going forward is that particularly people who are inspired by their religion to be in the public arena, which is totally legitimate and to be understood and expected, I would hope they would start focusing a little bit more on the Sermon on the Mount than the Supreme Court. I think we'd be better off if folks did that.
Jon, in your new documentary, The Soul of America, you note a significant number that stuck with me, which is 17%. You say that only 17% of Americans have trust in the federal government. And I'm wondering if you think that Trump's election was a symptom of this lack of trust, or was he a catalyst for it?
I think both, if I may, if I could be Anglican about it. I think that both are true. I think that he is a figure in a populist, a culturally populist tradition who managed to exacerbate and deepen a fundamental distrust of elites and of institutions, which is fascinating given his own socioeconomic place. But that's a conversation for history and biography. He's both a symptom and a cause. And one of the things that we have to deal with in the country is, what was it about the last 5 years, the last 10 years, that made so many Americans so desperate, so unhappy? Some were desperate, some were unhappy with the way the country was working, that they were willing to take a flyer on this incredibly disruptive figure. And I think that we're going to have to deal with that. The number you say, in 1964, we had 77% of the country believe that the federal government could basically be trusted. Now it's 17%, and I think that feels a little high to me. One of the tasks of a potential Biden presidency is going to be, can you get people to believe in the common good again?
Right. What a great way. I mean, that's the most brilliant way to put it. Can we get them to believe in the common good? Because the common good is the American good, right? So hopefully, something will change and, we'll be heading forward. And I just want to tell people to check out your podcast, It Was Said. The documentary, The Soul of America, premieres tonight on HBO at 9 p.m. Jon, thank you for coming to us.